In this module, I want to look at the opportunities for companies in Horizon 2020. And at the bottom of this first slide, you can see a web page that lists all the links that I mentioned in the presentation. Now, in the previous module, we looked at the fundamentals of Horizon 2020. We saw that with Pillar 1, which is excellent science, making Europe a leader in science. Pillar 2 is about making Europe a leader in industry. And Pillar 3 is about addressing societal challenges. We looked briefly at EIT. Euratom is about nuclear research, and the Commission has 7 institutes of their own called the Joint Research Centres. Now, to understand which parts of these programs are relevant to companies, I use the concept of TRL. And I have another module online explaining TRL, but basically this is a concept that was invented by NASA, the American Space Agency, in 1977. And TRL 9 referred to ready to launch. The technology has been fully developed, so I'll use my computer mouse as an example. 1 means it's a concept, 2, 3 means it's being researched at laboratory level, and TRL 4 means we have it working at laboratory level, but it's not very pretty. And even at this stage, this gentleman said there's no evidence that people will want to use these things. So when you're at TRL 1, 2, 3, 4, you're trying to push ideas that people don't believe in. 5, 6, and 7 is about demonstrating and prototyping the technology. Now, generally, TRL 1 to 4 is called research. TRL 5, 6, and 7 is normally referred to as innovation, but companies are involved in commercial activities, which goes on at TRL 8 and 9. Now, TRL 1 to 4 I consider a science push, with scientists pushing new ideas. But once the idea is demonstrated, it then becomes technology push. But what companies want and policymakers want is demand pull. They want to address a market. So sometimes a technology is being pushed, another time there's a demand for the technology. So let's see where does Horizon 2020 fit. Now, universities, fundamental research centres, they typically are in TRL 1 to 4. Institutes of technology would typically be TRL, say, 2 to 5. Now, the OECD did a study on companies in Europe, and they identified a rare type of company called a research-intensive company. Now, this is a company that can take research findings and bring them right through the demonstration prototyping phase. And they estimated that only 3% of European companies fit into that category. High technology companies are also rare. These are companies that can take a technology that has been demonstrated and maybe take it through the standards process. But again, these companies were about 3% of European companies. 96% of European companies were found to be what they call low tech and no technology. Now, there's a very nice UK report called the Nesta report called the Vital 6%, and it found that 6% of companies in the United Kingdom were generating 50% of all the new jobs. So are you a research intensive company, a high tech company, or a low tech company? Now, if you're a research intensive company, let's see which parts of Horizon 2020 are relevant to you. ERC is for fundamental research, so stay away from this. FET is for radical new ideas. Now, some companies may fit down here and they can participate in projects, but it's for a very rare type of project that's going to open up a whole new technology area. Now, Pillar 2 and Pillar 3, we can see here that a lot of Pillar 2 and Pillar 3 are suited to companies. So I'm going to give you some examples of these. And the first one is the SME Instrument. This is a type of grant within Pillar 2 and 3 that is designed specifically for small companies. So we'll have a look at that on the next slide. Public-private partnerships. When the Commission was designing Pillar 2 and Pillar 3, they consulted industry and they identified really important areas where developments were needed. And we'll have a look at those areas in the following slide. Now, Marie Curie funds PhDs and postdocs. We can see for this slide that Marie Curie actions involve companies. So I look on the following slide to show specific examples of how companies can get involved in the Marie Curie program. EIT, the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, is about bringing universities, companies, and research centres together around specific themes. So here companies can participate, and there's some good opportunities here for startup companies to get funded and to get trained. Access to finance is about giving money to venture capital companies to invest in high growth companies. So again, indirectly you can benefit here. And there's a new program launched in 2015 called Fast Track to Innovation. And this is to take companies, small groups of companies and research centres that have a technology that is very close to being getting to TRL 6 or 7. So again, this is quite a new program, but it's specifically for companies. Now, the new thing that will be happening from 2020 onwards is more money being put into demand pull activities, in other words, solving problems, developing innovation at regional level. And in future modules, I'll be looking at these structural funds and public procurement. They're not part of Horizon 2020, but the big trend we see now is linking Horizon 2020 to these kind of funds. If you're a high technology company, you're a user of high technologies, then a lot of Horizon 2020 is not relevant to you. But you can see here that the structural funds and public procurement, they will be relevant to you in the future. So let's look at Marie Curie. Marie Curie funds people. It's about developing the career of fellows, and companies can participate in Marie Curie networks. So there could be a Marie Curie network on artificial intelligence that involve universities, research centres, and a company is in there so the fellows get experience in the companies. What do you get as a company? You get free people, highly skilled people working in your company paid by Horizon 2020. There's a European Industrial Doctorate where somebody can do a PhD, say in Helsinki University, but half their time is spent in your company. Again, you have access to highly skilled people paid by Horizon 2020. RISE is a very nice action. It's about staff exchange. This is where a company in Ireland and a university in the Netherlands set up a project. People from the research centre in the Netherlands spend time in the Irish company, and people from the Irish company spend time in the Dutch research centre. So the whole idea is to transfer know-how between the research centres and the companies. Now here's a very special type of grant. It's called an SME Instrument. Now it's unique in that there's only one partner, you, the company. And there are three ways of getting funded. One is to get €50,000 for 6 months to do a feasibility study on the idea. You can then apply for phase 2, or you can skip phase 1 and go directly to phase 2. And here you get 1.5 million to do research, demonstration, pilot, and bring the technology closer to the market. And the next step then will be phase 3, called the commercialization stage. And this money more than likely will come from structural funds and from venture capital funding. Now, before you all rush off and say that's for you, it's for a very special type of company. It's for a company that the Commission calls a gazelle. This is a company, you know, the gazelle, the animal that runs along and jumps up very fast. This is for companies that have the potential to grow very fast with investment. When the Commission was designing Pillar 2 and Pillar 3, they consulted industry. They consulted the pharmaceutical sector, the electronics, the software, aeronautics, rail industry, and they considered these 6 areas so important, they set up 6 mini programs within Horizon 2020. These are called JTIs, Joint Technology Initiatives. Again, the programs are evaluated by industry, designed by industry, and very, very competitive, but really oriented at industrial needs rather than on academic needs. With the topics within Pillar 2 and Pillar 3 are also defined by industry under these areas: energy efficient buildings, green vehicles, 5G, cybersecurity, robotics, big data. And you can see on the right hand side of this slide, I have a web page called hyperion.ppp.htm, And there you can find all the advice that was given to the Commission and all the meetings that were held about those areas. So if those areas are relevant to your company, this is the opportunity for you. So in summary, what can be funded? We saw that TRL 1 to 4, research can be funded, demonstration, pilots, living labs. You can fund people. So people can be working in your company, but they will be part of university. So again, getting access to highly skilled people. If you want access to a supercomputer or some very special test facilities, it's also possible to do that in the research infrastructure program. Exchange of people between universities, research centres and your company. And they also fund, of course, studies, conferences and networks. So how much can a company get? Typically, a company can get 300,000 to 400,000 euro over 3 years as a partner in a project. The SME is an exception. Here you can get up to 1.5 million directly to your company. You do not have to pay this money back. This is a grant. You do not have to give up equity, and your intellectual property is protected. Those are the most common questions I get when I present to companies. So what's the dream scenario? The dream scenario is that you get funding for something you want to do anyway, or something that you can't do at the moment because of lack of funds. But secondly, the dream scenario is establishing contacts with technologists and with potential customers. So what I recommend to companies is analyze the projects already funded in your area, in your country. Identify potential partners in universities and institutes, and you'll find that in the same projects database. Learn the process of putting the proposal together, and I described that in the previous module, and utilize all services, national contact points, which are funded at national level. And at the bottom of this slide, you will see the website that I mentioned in slide number 1, and that contains the links to all of these different places. So I hope you enjoy that, and the best of luck in Horizon 2020.